The secret wealth of European oligarchs, hidden financial empires of Eastern Europe. Across Eastern Europe, behind the iron facades of towering skyscrapers and ancient palaces, lies a world of hidden wealth fortunes so vast, so secretive, they shape the very course of nations. Welcome to Brand Vanguard, where we peel back the layers of financial influence and expose the unseen power structures shaping our world. Today, we unravel the story of European oligarchs, titans of industry, oil magnates, media moguls whose fortunes stretch across borders and reach the highest echelons of political power. The origin of oligarchy in Eastern Europe. The rise of oligarchs in Eastern Europe cannot be understood without first delving into the collapse of the Soviet Union. The 1990s were a time of upheaval as former communist states transitioned to capitalist economies. Industries that had been nationalized under Soviet control, oil, gas, mining, manufacturing, were suddenly up for grabs. In the chaos, a few opportunistic individuals positioned themselves to seize control of these assets. The political and economic chaos of post-Soviet states, the privatization of state assets, and the role of corrupt officials. How oligarchs like Roman Abramovich, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and Vladimir Potanin built their empires by acquiring oil, gas, and metal industries at fractions of their value. A focus on Russia's loans for shares program that enabled a handful of businessmen to gain control of major industries. The hidden fortunes. Where does the money go? With wealth comes the challenge of where to store it. For Eastern European oligarchs, the key to securing their fortunes has been the use of offshore tax havens, shell companies, and elaborate financial networks that cross multiple jurisdictions. This web of secrecy shields them from both taxation and legal scrutiny. The use of offshore accounts in Cyprus, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands to hide wealth. How shell companies are created to obscure the real owners of assets. The role of international banks in facilitating money laundering and tax evasion. European tax havens like Luxembourg and Monaco, how they serve as financial hubs for the ultra-rich. Oligarchs and political power, the puppeteers behind Eastern Europe's governments. While immense wealth brings personal luxury, its true power lies in how it can shape the destiny of entire nations. Across Eastern Europe, oligarchs wield influence not just as businessmen, but as political puppeteers. They finance political campaigns, control media outlets, and dictate public policy from the shadows. The close ties between Russian oligarchs and the Kremlin under Vladimir Putin's regime. How oligarchs influence elections, fund political parties, and manipulate public opinion through media ownership. The role of oligarchs in Ukraine's political crises, including the Maidan Revolution and the subsequent Russian annexation of Crimea. Political corruption in Hungary, Bulgaria, and Romania, where oligarchs have significant control over governmental policies. Corruption and scandals. How oligarchs skirt the law. Where there is great power, there is often scandal. Eastern European oligarchs are no strangers to controversy, as their vast empires have often been built on shady deals, corruption, and criminal activity. While some oligarchs have faced legal repercussions, many continue to operate above the law. Major corruption scandals involving oligarchs in Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. The role of international criminal networks, money laundering, and the manipulation of stock markets. How oligarchs have avoided justice through political connections, bribery, and media control. The European Union's response. Sanctions and crackdowns. The European Union is no stranger to the challenges posed by oligarchic influence. In recent years, the EU has imposed sanctions on some of the most powerful oligarchs in an attempt to stem their political and economic control. But is it enough? EU sanctions against Russian oligarchs following the annexation of Crimea and the war in Ukraine. Financial regulations aimed at curbing money laundering and tax evasion within EU member states. How oligarchs continue to circumvent these sanctions and maintain control through financial loopholes. The European Union's response. Sanctions and crackdowns. As the European Union introduces sanctions and regulations, one of the key challenges remains the enforcement of these laws. Many oligarchs have found ways to navigate the restrictions by shifting their wealth across borders, utilizing financial intermediaries, and creating complex offshore networks. The question persists: can the EU truly dismantle these secretive empires? The role of the Magnitsky Act and its European equivalents in targeting corrupt oligarchs. Case studies of sanctions on Russian oligarchs such as Oleg Deripaska and Arkady Rodenberg. The use of golden passports in EU countries like Cyprus and Malta, which allow wealthy individuals to gain citizenship and bypass restrictions, media empires, and public perception. In addition to their economic and political influence, many oligarchs also control vast media empires. These empires give them the ability to shape public opinion, suppress dissent, and control the narrative surrounding their own actions. In some countries, entire news networks are owned or influenced by oligarchs, stifling the press's ability to hold them accountable. The impact of media ownership on public discourse and political decision-making in Russia, Ukraine, and Hungary. How oligarchs use media control to silence opposition, downplay scandals, and sway elections in their favor. The rise of independent journalism and citizen-led media movements that challenge oligarch-dominated narratives. The new frontier's technology and the digital economy. As the world moves into a digital age, a new class of oligarchs is emerging, those who control the technology, data, and digital infrastructure of the 21st century. While traditional industries like oil, gas, and steel remain critical, the focus is shifting toward tech-based wealth. In places like Estonia, Poland, and Hungary, a new generation of tech moguls is rising. The rise of Eastern Europe's tech sector, from cybersecurity companies in Estonia to fintech hubs in Warsaw. How oligarchs are adapting to the tech economy by investing in digital infrastructure, startups, and artificial intelligence. The potential for cryptocurrency and blockchain technology to disrupt traditional oligarchic control over finance. The future of oligarchy in Eastern Europe. As we look toward the future, one thing is clear: the wealth and power of Europe's oligarchs are deeply entrenched in the political and economic fabric of their nations. While the tides of change through technology, sanctions, and societal pressures may reshape their role, the systems they've built will likely endure. Predictions about the future of oligarchy in Eastern Europe as new generations of wealthy elites rise. The potential for global regulations to finally dismantle the complex financial networks oligarchs use to hide their wealth. The impact of younger generations and civil society movements pushing for more transparency and accountability in Eastern Europe. Oligarchs may operate in the shadows, but their influence is felt everywhere, from the gas you burn to the media you consume. Understanding their hidden empires is essential to grasping the political and economic realities of Eastern Europe. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the secretive world of European oligarchs. Subscribe to Brand Vanguard for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world.